Welcome back. I needed a challenge. I wanted to see if I could make a convincing rock base from just scrap XPS foam, but with scraps from all my previous projects. A few months back, I unboxed the Revelations line He-Man and Battle Cat figures. They sat in my closet for almost 2 years before unboxing them, and that hurts my soul a little bit, as it should for a child of the 80s. He-Man was one of my favorite TV shows growing up, and I wanted to display these and not just put them back in the closet. But just plopping them on the shelf wasn't going to suffice either. Let's get into this. But first, make sure you like and subscribe. My plan was to make a rock formation that the two of them would be standing on the edge of. Kind of like the cover art for a comic book. This base is going to be pretty big because Battle Cat is large. This is where I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of new XPS foam, as well as add to the scrap bag. There was little to no uniformity with these pieces, and an hour and a half later, I have a complete mess. I had these wooden rounds that happened to be the right size for what I was looking to do. I mocked up the height and position of where I wanted these two figures. And then I realized my foam safe super glue had solidified. And the tacky glue was going to take too long to set. Cue the hot glue montage. There wasn't much rhyme or reason here, other than build up to match the height that I needed, and also supporting Battle Cat's size. Once I had the perimeter in place, I could then fill in the middle with support, and then cover the top with flat pieces. It's ugly, I know, but I had to keep telling myself it was going to come out right. Since most of these pieces didn't fit together, I had to fill in those larger gaps, because the sculpt-a-mold that I was going to put on after needed something to adhere to, if not, it would just fall through. I had a lot of wavy offcuts from the Princess Bride project that I could use as free texture and variation on this rock. I used my handheld hot wire and utility knife to add some texture and to make this look more rocky and less blocky. Let's set that aside and clean up. I got out a container, sculpt-a-mold, water, joint compound, and some black paint. This was going to help seal the foam and fill in any holes and tie everything together. However, this is where I think I went wrong. When mixing this, I either didn't add enough water or the joint compound was part of the problem, but this mixture came out very lumpy. You may not see it in this footage, but there's a lot of clumping in the sculpt-a-mold. The smart thing would have been to stop and fix this, or do it in small batches, but we weren't doing smart things today. So I pushed forward and covered the rest of the foam. Now that everything was covered, I let that dry overnight. The next day, I was not happy with the results at all. It was far too lumpy and uneven, and I was disappointed. With the sculpt-a-mold there and dried, I didn't need to mix another batch, but I did want to try and smooth everything out a little bit. This time I was just going to use the joint compound and black paint, and I started frosting this like a cake. The cool thing about joint compound is you can watch it dry, especially when you put a hairdryer on it. And before any contractors come from me, I know it takes longer than 10 minutes with a hairdryer to dry this. I noticed there were some spots that weren't still to my liking, so I touched those up. Remember when I said I wasn't doing smart things? That applies to this day too. I got a little carried away and went over the whole thing again with the mixture. I really made more work for myself than I needed to. I did say at the beginning I wanted a challenge, so here we are. Now that I had a triple frosted cake, I let it sit for a couple days to dry. The third layer really helped it. It smoothed it out, but also left some variation in the rock. I mixed up some watered down paints to add some color variation to all this gray. I used green, raw umber, burnt sienna, and a sky blue. Throughout this whole process, I had to keep telling myself this is gonna look good. I sponged on a light gray to start tying all of these colors together. And then I went over it again with an even lighter gray, almost white, just on the high points. I used that same gray to dry brush everything a second time, just to give it some more depth that the sponge wasn't able to get. To tie all these colors together, I made a wash of black paint and applied it over everything and blotting up the excess as I went. This was the crucial step that alleviated my concerns that this was going to look good. The last step in the painting process was to dry brush all the high points with that gray, almost white. One last thing that this needed was some greenery. My original plan was to add static grass patches, but that didn't seem right to be growing on a rock formation. I did have some small tufts of grass, as well as some foliage clusters, that I strategically placed around the base in areas where I thought grass clumps would sprout up and where moss would be growing. With the base complete, I just needed to add He-Man and Battle Cat. I placed Battle Cat in position, but I'm not attaching him to the base. If I was going to move this at any point, I want the ability to take him off. Plus, if I had attached him to the base, there would be 4 peg holes where he was standing. And he also doesn't have peg holes in his feet. He-Man was a different story. As most action figures do, he has peg holes in his feet I can utilize. I cut 2 small pieces of acrylic rod and hot glued them into the footholes. I drilled corresponding holes and put He-Man in place. And with that, we're done. Let's get this up on the turntable. This was a fun build. It really pushed me out of my comfort zone, which is what you want in a project. On top of that, this brought me back to my childhood. Playing with my toys on the living room floor, having He-Man and Battle Cat stop Skeletor and his evil forces. I'm so happy that I got to make this, and now I have a nice piece to put on my shelf. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention, I have a few other Revelation line figures in the closet to unbox. That was another reason I made this base so big. Once I unbox them, there's enough room for a few to stand up here as well. I'm very excited about that. Make sure you keep an eye out. If you've made it this long into the video and you like He-Man and Battle Cat as much as I do, drop a like and make sure you subscribe for more projects and unboxings like this. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.